Okay, and we're, you get the public back in?
Yep.
Okay, this is Brett Compson. For the record, we have a closed agenda item number 6. And we are on agenda item number 7. We are now back in open meeting. Lauren has allowed all the public back in from the lobby, and we will accept any phone calls that come in while we are doing this. Any questions before we move to agenda item number 8? Okay, hearing none. We will go to agenda item number 8, which is friction points and barriers to fuel resiliency. This is a discussion only. We are going to ask our industry members of the committee that we afforded the opportunity to present any friction points, barriers, and impediments that they face related to building fuel resiliency and redundancy, increasing capabilities, capacities, and storage, or investing in the Nevada fuel ecosystem. So I am just going to go down the agenda list of names and the non-voting members and provide those opportunities for any industry member that wants to provide that. What we really hope to gain for this for the committee is your candid sharing of the challenges that you face so that we, the state of Nevada government, can work together to try to bring this to fruition to help you invest in Nevada and our citizens in the future. So with that, I'm going to open. Did we pick up Mr. Drew Spence from Holly Frontier? Don't see him. Okay, so we will go to Mr. Alan Four with Kinder Morgan.
We do have Drew.
Okay, I'll go back to Drew then.
I'm just.
Sorry there, I was having a few technical difficulties. Okay.
Is that Mr. Four?
No, that's Drew Spence with HF3Y.
Okay, Drew, we will give the floor to you then. Drew Spence with Holly Frontier.
Yeah, I think one thing as we think about, I think the first meeting I announced, we're looking at a pipeline expansion upstream coming from the state of Wyoming, and then to help fill our CalNev pipeline that runs from Salt Lake City, potentially up to 150,000 barrels a day. And talking with our midstream group, I think one thing that can benefit us is just from a permitting and air quality on when we go to the state to request permitting on potentially new build tanks down in the state of Nevada. Could we put shot clocks or some kind of legislation in to help expedite those permitting opportunities to get fast track tanks as far as building? It's something that we're talking with the state of Utah on as well. So I would just ask the state of Nevada if that's something you guys would be interested in doing.
Okay.
Just for clarification. Thank you, Jennifer Carr, for the record. I had a little bit of difficulty hearing, but it sounded like you were talking about fast tracking of permitting. But you also mentioned air quality. Are you, was it permitting of building new infrastructure or permitting related to air quality, which would be in my jurisdiction?
Permitting on infrastructure.
On the infrastructure itself?
That's correct.
Could you help me understand what type of permitting you're concerned about or referring to, just to see if it lands in in the Division of Environmental Protection?
Yeah, I don't have all the details from my midstream group, but it's just one thing that was an ask. I mean, sometimes you submit a permit and it's just, there's no timeline on when an agency necessarily could potentially get back to you. So it's basically putting a shot clock on that to say, if we were to submit a permit to build new infrastructure, the state agencies have 30 days or 90 days.
We're having a really hard time hearing you.
Kathy Grace Boyd for the record. Drew, we're having trouble hearing you, but I think you're talking about permitting infrastructure. Is this actually the actual, steel in the ground, building of a pipeline, all the things associated with that? Is that kind of what you're referring to?
That's correct.
Okay, that's building the pipeline.
So Director Goykochia, for a couple of reasons, for the record and for a couple questions. I'm myself for a couple of reasons too. We won't get into that. Some of the permitting we're going to need pipeline and infrastructure wise is going to have to come from our federal partners for BLM. We're gonna have to look at right away, what's existing, what has had NEPA done on it, can we dovetail in to some of these right of ways that have already been done for pipelines? But then the local jurisdiction, where are we looking at putting these tank farms? Or where are we looking at putting, we're gonna put racks in distribution. So I don't, there might be a little bit of interplay with DEP and NDA, but I think most of that permitting is the major slow stuff comes on the other side. And so we're gonna need to work with our federal partners and our local jurisdictions on that.
Any other comments, Drew?
No, sir.
Okay, with that, we will go to Mr. Alan Ford with Kinder Morgan. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. A lot of good conversation today. As you know, and as I talked about last time, we're a major supplier of petroleum products to Nevada, into the Reno market, into the Las Vegas market. We have limitations on our pipeline coming from California into Las Vegas simply because of the difficulty of expanding that system, because it crosses terrain that's very difficult to expand into. So that line is providing about 42,000 barrels a day. And our capacity at our facility with our 45 petroleum tanks is about 750,000. So that's meeting the current needs generally, but obviously when we talk about outages and things of that sort, that's a concern for us, and I know a concern for everyone on this. Chevron mentioned previously about power. Power is a big deal. Generation necessary to our facilities, or power a pump station, is significant. Not going out to Generac and picking something up. It's a very significant expense. And for Nevada, some of these pump stations are in California. So when you're talking about putting generation into, some type of generation, that may come with a air quality component, depending on what type of generation you have. And I know we've run into that before with California and the rules that they have related to that. It's just a fact that under the current configuration, a lot of this product comes from California, and it's not just when it gets into Nevada that we're talking about. It's the plumbing of the entire system. So things to keep in mind. We'll build pretty much anything that there's a customer interest for. We are at our customers are those who want to ship product to destination. We don't own the product, as you know. We store it and transport it. So if there is interest in any kind of an expansion of a system, even the SFPP line north, we're interested in discussing that, but is it commercially viable? And a lot of projects are out there talking about a lot of things, but I don't think we should, you have to pass a commercially viable threshold with a company making a final investment decision to commit, in many cases, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to projects. They're not going to do that without certainty on both sides. So commercial is a challenge. I mean, we can expand our Las Vegas line now. Is there commercial interest to do that? No, not right now. So, those are kind of things to talk about. Any of the private companies on there have a different version of what I'm saying, but that's the fact, is that we have to have commercially viable options here. So when we're talking about, perhaps doing some type of a Nevada Petroleum Reserve, similar to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, other states are looking at that too. Florida is looking at something like that. So, we're happy to be part of that discussion and doing that. But obviously, you can't let fuel sit in tanks forever. There has to be a cycling process, and you have to build the tanks. And somebody's got to pay for that. So I think anything that we're talking about, to be realistic, there are financial components about it. I haven't heard that talked about much today, but that's very, very much key part of many of the initiatives folks have been talking about. I talked before too about our Western Gateway system to lessen reliability on California refineries. That's bringing in product from the Gulf and as far away as the Midwest to have another source of product coming into Arizona, Nevada, and California. Got projects not yet at final investment decision, but if it is, then that's something too that Nevada could potentially benefit from. From a permitting perspective, I think, Director, you were spot on some of the federal components that we need to be concerned about. It certainly is a much better environment, I will say, from a regulatory perspective. From personal experience, we've got an issue right now. While I've been not on the screen, I've been dealing with the BLM issue in Arizona. But you can move things forward with the Energy Dominance Council, the Fast 41 process. There are a number of other things out there that the federal government has initiated to help. But state and local is important too, both in new build and also with integrity work that you have to do on pipelines. These are older pipelines that we're operating, and they do need work. And what's critical, and California has done this. I mean, if we have an outage for some reason and it's not a planned outage, the state of California immediately, sometimes declaring a state of emergency, sometimes not, but really saying, you know, the number one priority is to get that pipe back online. So yes, you can deal with the air quality districts, you can deal with these other things, but post back in service. So that's another thing just to look at. We have not had issues with the state of Nevada from a integrity management standpoint, where we have temporary outages, planned outages, that is, so you know about them. It's not going to have any impact on supply. But for fixing things, for upgrading things, we've had a pretty good system in place there. One other thing I would add is we have to be coordinated, and I think we got a lot better after you all remember the Clark County issue and during the Super Bowl time of a couple of years ago in Phoenix and Watson, and Clark County declared a state of emergency, followed by governor declaring a state of emergency. And for what was probably didn't rise to that level, but understandably did because of what I think are communications issues that we've improved. But somebody said on the call earlier, how many days of supply do we have? Well, how scared are people about that supply? Because if you have a run on gas stations in Reno or Las Vegas, your supply dwindles to nothing quickly. If you have regular usage of supply, you have a lot longer days of supply. So I think, at least now, I get a call from someone in the governor's office or emergency management when something is heard. Director, you talked about this. You hear something, or your staff gets something. We get I call it like a pressure valve check. So call me and say, is this serious? What's happening? What's happening with your line? And you can get an immediate response from us. I'll talk to our head of operations. Sometimes I haven't heard about it, but get a quick answer, nothing to worry about. That's not an issue. Or explain to you what exactly it is. And we're also trying to be more proactive about reaching out when things happen. So I'll stop there, but those are some of the ongoing issues and concerns. But I appreciate the discussion. This is all relevant information and very important. Thanks.
Yeah, Alan, I appreciate it. And this is Brett Thompson. Just to reemphasize what Alan pointed out, when we dealt with the January 25 issue, it was Tim Robb in the governor's office at that time. Kinder Morgan was fantastic at keeping us updated, and the progression from getting power back to Colton to flow reestablished, just awesome partner. So appreciate that.
Mr. Chair. Kathy Reyes-Boyd, Vice Chair. So I'm just going to keep a running tally too, as Brett is also, as all these issues are brought up. So we've got permitting, whether it's infrastructure or quality. We've got commercial viability, which is a big issue, the financial side, and then this issue of integrity management. So far, those are the ones. We're gonna kind of keep a running total.
Well,
You talk about the commercial viability, and I mean, what really interests me is that Western Gateway, because, we can talk about what all of the potential threats are to our fuel system that are out there. But today, because of the policies that California has passed, they are creating the kind of emergency situation that we may experience with other bigger issues that occur. And, I'm just wondering if that goes into your thought on the commercial viability of bringing fuel in from the east. Because I look at California and I look at where they're going. Hey, Chevron wrote a beautiful letter to the governor and the leadership in California yesterday, talking about all these issues and what their impacts are. So does that factor into that commercial viability of going outside California?
Absolutely. And, that project is meant to address the California issue and the refinery closures and the alternatives to direct pipeline service, particularly into Southern California, is waterborne barrels coming in. But also those have to be refined already because the refinery is closed, and that's a whole different scenario. But the whole idea here is on that pipe, and there are other projects too looking at this, but our project along with Phillips 66 is based upon diversity of supply. That is critical in this process, and having not only the ability to the Gulf markets getting that cheaper product to the area, and it less expensive, is also as far away as the Midwest. So when you're thinking about that, and you can also kind of look at the system too, is you talk about storage and supply, that pipelines sort of almost act like, in addition to the end tanks that are there, they also act like their own storage system. So if you have a long pipeline system, you also have significant product in there on its way to destination. So I think it gives security of product diversity, as well as certainty around price. Because the other part is, as California, we're having price spikes now, unrelated to the refinery closures, but add on the full impact of refinery closures onto that is also going to boomerang into Nevada. So your interest in diversity supply is as keen as California's is. It's a little different reason, but it's as keen as theirs is, because you will be impacted by it.
Chief O'Neill?
Yeah, thank you, Brian O'Neill, for the record. Alan, you talked a little bit about power generation being a significant expense and disruption due to both planned and unplanned outages. Have you looked at small modular reactors, and is there a way to change the power generation to like the smaller micro reactor to try to stabilize that situation?
We're looking at a number of different things. And, it depends on the size and scope of the facility. It depends on the size and scope of the particular pump station, and what it's going to take to power that in the short and longer term, depending on an extended outage like California may have, related to earthquakes, wildfires, whatever it might be. So I think we're open to a lot of different options there. It just depends on what we need and what is available to do it. Potentially there's electric, there's natural gas driven generation that can be separate from that. But we haven't looked at that from a reactor sense, but I know those are being thought about in much larger facilities. And I don't think we need quite that much power, but I think as part of, it would be helpful for us as this group discusses this, because it keeps coming up, but no one seems to have a sense of urgency around it until it's needed, if you will. So to really vet out all the various options that are out there, we can help with how much power we think we need. And then how do we make up that power and then put some costs around it, I think would give us all a better clear-eyed view of what we're looking at.
Thank you.
Through the chair, Kathy Reyes-Boyd. Thank you, Alan. That's really helpful. On the modular nuclear reactor side, I know in California, obviously that's a big discussion right now. There is a piece of legislation being considered to exempt those small reactors from the process. So I love your idea of getting a sense of the power you need, the options, and then the cost. And that certainly could be one of them on the list that we explore.
All right, thanks, sir.
Thank
With
you.
that, going to move to Mr. Chris Adams with Chevron.
All right. Hey, good morning again, and thank you. Yeah, I think Alan brought up a lot of good points. When you talk about the commercial side, I think he talked about it from an infrastructure perspective. But again, as you look through, if we wanted tankage, I think there's probably a varying incentive across the panel here in terms of how third parties look at valuing that tankage. But we also have to consider the cost of capital. So somebody is going to own and hold those barrels. As Alan mentioned, it is the producers or the shippers that own the barrels that are in the pipe and in the tanks. And so there's going to be an optimal curve between what industry is incentivized to bring up and hold in tank. There's probably an opportunity there for more than we have today that the industry would support. Again, there's going to be an infinite curve on the back end that says at some point there's a lot of shareholder cash, depending on the company, sitting in a tank, and to whose benefit. And so that is something to consider, because that's definitely something that all companies would probably be aligned that you get diminishing returns there very quickly. So it's so important to consider. I'll piggyback on my trucking comments from earlier, in echoing what Alan said. We probably have enough infrastructure today, kind of based on managing the day-to-day. It's when things go wrong that we don't, right? We quickly get into issues where we don't have alternatives. You get behind and it's hard to catch up. Trucks tend to have been the mechanism to fill those voids. And one of the things, well, two of the things I think we should be thinking of, whether it's at a, on a UNEV side or on a CalNev side with Kinder Morgan, or whether it's at the airport, do we feel that as a region and an industry that we have sufficient truck slots, manpower, capabilities round the clock to be able to take in those trucks when things go sideways? And my answer would be sometimes yes, and when it gets really bad, probably not. And so how do you assess what's that right balance between, hey, we pick up the phone and say we need to start rolling trucks from whatever market, whether it's California, Utah, the East, that those trucks can roll and they've got a place to go and efficiently can offload. And I think it's a separate discussion between whether it's at a KM terminal or at the airport, for example, getting jet directly to them, and for the military for that fact. The last one, I'd say it also aligned with the diversity of supply, and a lot of comments around Western Gateway in California. Obviously, we're a large refiner in California, but also strongly connected to imports, as are many. And so I think diversity of enabling the imports. I think it's trendy to say that we want to wean ourselves off California, but remember, it's also the gateway to imports as well. So we just have to be considering all avenues of making sure we keep that diversity flowing when we're looking at things. So that's pretty much it, if there's any questions.
Any questions for Chris? Okay, thanks, sir. Appreciate it. With that, I'll go to Steve Lesher with Shell. Steve, you there? Okay, we will skip Steve. We'll come back to him. Miss Tiffany Roberts with Phillips 66. Okay, looks like we have lost Tiffany as well. Casey with Marathon, you are up, sir.
Casey also needed to jump off for a minute, but he said he'll be right back on.
Okay, we will keep moving then. And Jody Muller with WSPA. Anything that you'd like to contribute?
Thank you very much, Jody Muller, for the record. I would say, we won't comment on any individual company project or concern, but it is important, I think, as your participants have acknowledged, to remain diversified and have that diversified fuel supply to avoid any disruptions. So the more you look at that, will, definitely assist with your concerns over resiliency. I would also say that in the short term, it is going to continue to be important to engage with California as you continue to work on these long-term solutions. The short term, continuing to engage, continuing to be vocal on your concerns about the policies there that are impacting you all and leading to many of these conversations. And I definitely have more to add when we get to the analysis project, but thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we will go to Joseph Biscardi with EBF.
Through the chair, I know Joseph could not participate, but I did have a conversation that I'll just share for the record, that one of PBS's biggest issues is the impact of cost to the PBF refineries as a result of California's cap limit. So we can get into the details of that, but I think it's one we want to capture here as just another example of a California policy that could impact the viability of refineries because of the cost associated with it.
Thank you. Miranda Hoover, ECAN.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I wasn't able to join you in person today, but it's great to see you. So a few things we've been working on. First, and it was mentioned earlier, we've been working directly with Senator Cortez Masto's office on the Refined Fuel Reserve Act that they've been working on. Our members have submitted a few comments to her office. We have some concerns about the way that the language has been drafted. There is a keen difference between refined product and how long it can be stored versus crude product. Really, for refined product, we're looking at anywhere between 1 to 3 years that fuel can be stored versus crude oil could be stored for decades. So we're working directly with their office on some of that language. Number two, as I know most, if not all of the industry members on this call today know, the Utah legislature will conclude tomorrow. We do believe that the fuel export tax threat has been muzzled at this point. We've worked directly with Governor Lombardo's office on this, as well as our colleagues in Idaho. Idaho, as I'm sure most of you have seen, came out, bat swinging regarding the fuel threat. We'll continue to monitor that as we know more conversations will come out about it after the Utah legislature concludes. But again, at this point, we believe that threat's been muzzled, which is positive for Nevada at this point. And third, we also have continued to have conversations with our Nevada federal legislators regarding EPA, regarding potential, red tape that we might be requesting to have cut as we look into what infrastructure projects Nevada needs to really be bolstering its fuel resiliency and what the future holds for us. And of course, I'm sure, you all know that, gas prices in Nevada have gone up exponentially the last few days. We're very involved in those conversations with California, as well as with all of our fuel members in Nevada, trying to come up with solutions, as well as some timelines for how long we think that those prices are going to continue to rise, but also be as high as they are, simply with the Iranian conflict going on. So we're involved in all those conversations and here to answer any questions anyone might have. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? All right, Mr. Paulinos.
Hey, thanks, Brett. For the record, Paul Enos, Nevada Trucking Association. Hey, appreciate the recognition of trucking. Once again, trucking is probably the worst way to move fuel, from a pipeline standpoint, from a rail standpoint, you'd much rather move it those ways than by truck. So when you get into that situation, it's how do you find the assets? How do you find the drivers? What is the time it's going to take? If I'm getting my fuel out of California, it's going to take a lot more trucks because, I can move, I think I said 80,000 or 8,000 pounds, 8,000 gallons is what you can typically move in a straight truck. You can do better going to Utah because you can run longer configuration vehicles up to 129,000 pounds. So you can move more fuel going east into Utah. But then again, that gets limited because there's only certain states that allow it. Liability for our guys is a big issue. And we ran into this in 2021 with American Airlines, where they didn't have enough fuel on the pipeline. They hadn't bought enough, maybe it was 2020, summer of 2020. They hadn't bought enough fuel on the pipeline. So I was getting calls asking, can we send trucks over Donner Summit to pick up Jet A? Our guys really don't like to move Jet A. Long stretches, there's an increased liability there. So, I mean, that's something that when you're talking about trucking fuel, that is one of the big considerations that you just have to think about, especially if there is an hours of service waiver or something extra that had to be done. So, and that's going to be first and foremost in the minds of all of my members, when they're moving these products.
Any questions for Paul?
Yeah, I have one, if I might, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
So again, so I think that's somewhere where we can help from a legislative standpoint, where we can limit the liability during an emergency situation for trucking these kind of industries, for your industry, Paul. So I'm excited to hear that, because I think
Here I kiss you right now.
next time, Paul, next time. But and frankly, that is something we can do. I know last session there was issues about, these small trucking firms and liability and all of this. The trial attorneys get way in front of all this stuff, and we have to be able to protect those folks who are willing to step up in time, especially. We want citizens to be safe. We want accountability. I get all of that. At the same time, during an emergency, we need to give you some protection. Just so.
That was Senator Tice for the record. Jeff Glasgow, do we pick up Jeff? No, okay. Allison Robinson, we know, is not here, but Ms. Kathy is going to read some of her notes in for us.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So Allison Robinson, U.S. Energy, unable to attend, but did provide some information about the bulk facility in North Las Vegas that they operate close to the Kinder Morgan pipeline terminal. It offers more than 80 rail cars, spots, and 100,000 barrels of existing tankage. It's got a footprint that they shared has significant room for growth, and they believe there's a strong potential to add additional rail supply to this facility and fuel storage. So rail supply and fuel storage. Their challenges are three. One, permitting. We've heard much about. They did mention air permitting, so we can get more details on that, but it has slowed their ability, or could slow their ability to expand. But they're anxious to talk about that option. And then funding, of course, if there's any, as they explore what it would take to actually expand the property, they could give a better idea of if there's any funding or cost limitations to doing that. And then the third was land availability, really specific to rail track, that there is additional land that is available there. Maybe there's a way to look at landing with the Air Force Base that's close nearby, but they would like to expand the track capacity to really accommodate another full unit train. And again, this would be able to increase the volume of throughput through that facility. And so they're very interested in talking about the land availability. So those are their three barriers.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll go to Mr. Chris Pellegrin with Omega.
Thank you. All great comments. Specifically in the northern side of Nevada, having an asset in Sparks, two assets in Sparks, one on rail, one on the pipeline. We're evaluating adding additional storage to accommodate additional storage for our customers. Again, our customers, are the stockholders, the shippers. So we're in care, custody, and control of the product, but we're not dictating who gets it and when they get it. I heard about permitting today. I think some of the challenges we have is as we're starting to go through the permitting process. I think the air permit process has kind of been it took some time, but we do have kind of comfortable where we are on that front. We're about to start the challenges, maybe I'm anticipating, of just the local community. Do we want to, more storage permits and things like that? So any help or assistance or thoughts and ideas around that would be something for us personally. But I've got just some random questions I had were, has there been any discussions with, I think it's Delta, Utah, I think is what they call it. Traffic-Era has a lot of a cavern for storage, and everyone's talking about additional storage, but maybe if there was, if there was an entity that wanted to, park barrels, gasoline, diesel, those sorts of things, those come to mind. Kind of getting off the grid a bit, is there much heating oil for heating homes or businesses in the Nevada area, specifically the northern side, I guess, because it's cooler maybe? Does anybody have any general kind of just high level comments on that? Is there much heating oil at all? I'm not on that side of the world, if you will.
There's a little bit. I mean, it's all diesel too.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. Just one thing that came to mind, I could just see, like, when we're thinking about all the threats and things and issues where, we're talking about fuel for, first responders, all that. And I'm just thinking, worst case, it's 0 degrees, northern Nevada. Some homes may not, they may require that or whatnot.
There's a lot more propane for that.
Propane, right. And that's kind of, I was going to get into the propane piece of it and whatnot. So obviously, I don't know where to start and stop, but in terms of pipeline connectivity, obviously that's certainly the most efficient. The rail infrastructure, we do bring in rail today for customers for gas or for, some gas, but diesel and ethanol and jet from time to time. We are looking to expand that. Would like to find if there's any relationships or partnerships with others that want to have that as an option and backup. But I would say really permitting and at the local level, like at the kind of the city level, is somewhere where I think we're going to have challenges with wanting to expand our footprint. We're wanting to also expand our rail footprint. We've had some challenges doing that just because priorities maybe with the railroads and what their goals are and objectives. But generally, those are kind of my thoughts or ideas at this point, and open for any questions you guys might have about our operation. Again, we supply the jet into the airport and have gas and diesel that we bring into our 2 different facilities in that area. So, and trucking, certainly, I feel for the trucking company representative. There was Paul. Your folks are in, representatives are in our facilities, and we understand the challenges you all come up with have. So.
Yeah, Chris, Kathy Rios-Boyd, I do appreciate you bringing up the salt caverns. There is obvious interest in sawtooth caverns.
Yep.
Store product. Obviously, there's advantages considering the length of time that product could be stored versus a tank. Obviously, logistics to talk through on all of that, but they do have the ability to increase their capacity. And I do know in talking with them that there is a lot of interest in this committee's work and in what you've raised as another opportunity.
And this is just me talking out loud. You talk about the pipeline coming into the state. Certainly, you're dependent and reliant a lot of like the infrastructure, on the western side, the California side, the pump stations and so forth. But just talking out loud, but I'm just thinking like worst case for Nevada is, what keeps the shippers from dictating that their products get intercepted, if you will, and the stockholders say, hey, I want to deliver it to all the tanks in Colton or anything in California, whether it's the northern side or southern side of the systems, and keeps those barrels in bulking up the tankage closer in that state versus, pushing along the way all the way into Fallon, back into Reno and so forth. So I didn't know if there's any mechanisms in place or if that's really the, the customers in the pipeline that dictate that. But if there's just something, kind of a pinch point maybe to be considered, that we find out that, worst case, something happens in Nevada and they're stocking up all the storage in California and not necessarily in the Nevada side. So just a comment.
Brett Thompson for the record, and then California does have a set aside program that will impact us undoubtedly on anything that's coming from the west. Good observation, thanks, sir. Okay, with that, I'm gonna go back over to see if we pick Steve Lesher back up. Steve, are you available?
Yes, sorry, I needed to figure out where my mute button was, or unmute as it were.
Floor is yours, sir.
So comments I have to share is similar to what I shared last time, which is, to us, the pinch points and friction points are all about investment signals. So the signals sent by the legislature and the government, I think that's probably why this committee is so important. But as a company that's primarily a fuel importer on the West Coast, we're looking for good investment signals upon which we can invest. So whether it's permit streamlining or just signaling that traditional fuel investment is welcome and encouraged in a particular state, all those policy decisions make sense. I think Nevada moved through a period there where there was a lot of adoption by reference of what other states were doing that were restricting fossil fuel development and traditional fuel development. And I think coming out of that is really important. And so I appreciate the focus of the administration. And that's really the biggest thing we're looking for, is what are the investment signals policy-wise that will make us invest in the state.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And
no problem. Sorry about my mute situation.
All good. Did we pick Tiffany Roberts back up? Okay. And Casey Sullivan, I believe, is back on. No. Okay. With that, so we missed Tiffany and we missed Casey. I am going to open the floor once for anyone else that would like to make comments under this agenda item in regards to friction points, barriers, things that are slowing the industry down or impediments to industry. Jen.
Thank you, Jennifer Carr, for the record. I appreciate the comments that were made a couple of times regarding air quality permit concerns. To help me help you, whether it be direct emails to me, whatever the case may be, I'm really interested in the specific types of air quality permits that that the industry is challenged with, and the locations. Are we in Washoe County? Are we in Clark County? Or are we the other 15 counties for which NDEP it manages the permitting program? So I'd love to gather more specificity on those challenges, either ones you've experienced in the past or ones you may be currently experiencing going forward. And then I can factor that into my work here on this committee. I will also note that staff has conveyed to me that the Clark County Air Quality Management District is interested in having some time on the floor with this committee, because they are in severe non-attainment for ozone in Clark County. And the type of fuel being used in various times of year has a direct impact on their ability to manage air quality, particularly in Clark County. Emergencies not set aside. They are very concerned about various fuel waivers and various things that can happen over the course of the year. So I just wanted to note that as a potential opportunity for another point of input to this committee on how this intersects with air quality and public health.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'll make some comments. Bill obliged to you. My name is Vincent Guthrie. I serve as the executive director of the Nevada Association of Counties. Since permitting and that was mentioned, and I do think local government has a role there. I think as a general rule, our members are not opposed to permitting shot clocks. As long as they're agreed upon shot clocks. I think obligatory numbers get a little bit challenging for my members. But I think in general, whether it's housing infrastructure or other infrastructure projects, we would be open to those as long as they're sort of agreed upon. And similar to Jennifer Carr's comments, I think it'd be interesting to know some of the pain points and the jurisdictions where the pain points are occurring. on those. So, but I think those conversations are welcome, I guess I would say. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, sir. All right, last call for additional comments on this agenda item. Okay. That we will close agenda item number 8, move to agenda item number 9. This will be an update on the fuel analysis project. This will be covered by myself and Vice Chair Kathy Reese-Boyd. And so here's where we are on moving forward with the fuel analysis product. So funding this thing over the last 2 months has been challenging. What we believe is on the state of Nevada government side is we have secured commitment to fund. And we will have to go before the Board of Examiners and the Interim Finance Committee in April. That's on the 14th and 16th respectively. We are asking for approximately $350,000 of state money to fund an update to the 23 analysis that was provided to us at the last meeting, as well as looking into the future projections, which speaks to some of the economic viability that some of our partners talked about today, as well as gaps and recommendations. So concurrently with the public meetings that we hold as a committee, we intend to behind the scenes have the commission of the analysis product update done. That will obviously take some time, and we are going through the government system to fund it, which will take some more time. We will have to work through with purchasing on the actual letting of the contract, and that could add some more time if we're not, we don't get a sole source. So we're working through that right now. It is moving forward. It is just moving forward at the speed of government at the moment. So.
The only thing I'd add, Mr. Kathy Board, is the scope of the work is very granular, and it specifically looks at company projects and confidential conversations with those companies to get to those specific questions that we need to know if we're going to solve this for going forward. And it'll also break down in much more detail north versus south versus just the state, because they're very different entities. So there's a lot of granularity in the scope that we envision for this analysis, which is why its price tag tends to be a bit extensive, because there's a lot of people to talk to, not only on the industry side, but on the government side. So I don't know if that helps.
For comments for the record, is also our intent that whomever would like to do this, we are asking them to get with all of the partners that have contributed thus far and our members, as well as other interested parties that are not necessarily on the committee, and offer NDAs so that they can have very frank and candid conversations. We, as members of the board, may not get to see all the detailed benefits of that, but at least the analytics team will be able to process that, synergize that into a methodology or a result that we can use as we make these recommendations to the governor, ultimately to the legislature, for what we can do to move forward to make this better for Nevadans. So any questions or comments on this one? Jody.
Thank you very much, Jody Muller, for the record. I just have mentioned to Kathy as well that we are conducting an update to that analysis that was presented to you all in the last meeting that really will look at supply risk analysis, look at fuel demand modeling and tracking regional pipeline logistics, and very focused on legislative and regulatory support that is impacting your resiliency in Nevada. And we do believe that that will be very helpful to you all with your analysis that you are conducting. And we hope to have that complete, hopefully within the next month or two, and are happy to share that information and have conversations.
That's great. Kathy Reese-Boyd, thank you, Jody. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Great, seeing none, we will move on. We'll propose agenda item number 9. We will move to agenda item number 10, public comment. This is second period of public comment. Provide testimony during this period of public comment via telephone. Please call in at anytime, anytime, on 1-669-219-2599. When prompted to provide meeting ID, please enter 202-331-8963 and press pound. When prompted for participant ID, please press pound. When asked to provide public comment, please press *6 to unmute your phone and *6 again when your comments are complete. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Any public comment in Carson City? No public comment in Carson City. Any public comment on Zoom? Seeing none, Lauren, do we have any phone call-ins, public comment? Seeing none, we will close agenda item number 10 and we will move to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Kathy with the first, Director Goptia with a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nay?